We call it coercion.
Yeah, coercion.
Coercion, yeah.
Morning, Toastmasters.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Procrastination. When I say that word, Aspen, what comes to mind?
Aspen? Epsom comes to mind. Epsom comes to mind.
Espen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Epsom comes to mind?
Epsom comes to mind. Yeah.
When I think about procrastination, I think pro is before procrastination. So as bad as procrastination is, pro is still better than that, whatever that is. We'll talk about it next time. No, I joke, but I do want to walk you through the emotional development of how I came to this speech. 4 weeks ago, if you remember, I spoke on sports and how that helped me develop as a person. Afterwards, like someone who just run a long race, I was elated. I was done. I saw the schedule. I'm not speaking until July 31st. No problem. I'll have it done plenty of time beforehand. Fast forward, I wake up Monday morning to an email from Athena requesting that Bruce and I send her our topic as well as our intro. Has anyone heard of the comedian Brian Regan?
Yeah,
Reagan, whatever, however. He has a bit where he talks about the woes of a middle school science fair and how you have the whole semester to do it. You wake up the morning of, head pops off the pillow. Oh no, I have done nothing. That's how I felt, honestly, for the speech. So I thought I'd do some research, because this speech is intended to have a research component to it, of why we procrastinate, what it is, etc. So with that, procrastination by experts is defined as the voluntary delay of important tasks that we intend to do despite knowing that we'll suffer for it. I don't fully agree with that definition because I don't think it's always a conscious decision that I will suffer for it later. And that's interesting because a doctor by the name of Dr. Ferrari goes in to the psychology of procrastination. He found that those that struggle with procrastination chronically actually don't continue to improve. It's a feedback loop that continues, and we actually spend more time, or people that procrastinate spend more time making themselves feel better after an event than they do trying to improve. And so the instance would be like, hey, if I didn't study for a test, I take the test, I spend more time going, wow, I did pretty good for not having studied. And if you go a little bit deeper into that psychology of procrastination, people who procrastinate would rather be known as someone who, or for the majority, would be rather known as someone who doesn't give a full effort than someone who actually can't do something. So I thought that was interesting. There's really, is procrastination good or bad? There's a couple trains of thought. One is that it is helpful. It creates some positive stress, helps us be efficient, and we're able to get things done in a short period of time. However, back in the 90s, they did a study at some university, now off the top of my head I can't remember, Case Western, and they looked at college students, and they looked at, in the short run, yes, actually, procrastination did offer better results as far as elation goes, but of course, college students are going to go do what gives you more pleasure in the short term, right? But when they studied it over a long period of time, they found that those that chronically procrastinate actually end up with lower grades, higher levels of stress, higher levels of sickness, and lower overall feelings of well-being. And so this is an area I want to improve on, as well as time management, so I actually got here today early, but so that's why I want to dive into it a little bit. As to why we do this, again, two trains of thought. One thought by experts is that it's actually a time management skill, and so that's predicated on the fact that we as humans would weigh more heavily items or activities that give us more pleasure, or utils, an economist would say, and then we give heavier weight to tasks the closer they get to the deadline. The naysayers of that theory would say that, well, that would be called time management then, but procrastination has a negative connotation, so it can't be good. The other thought is that, and Dr. Ferrari falls under this train of thought, he would say that it's actually an inability to regulate emotions. And that's evidenced by, we feel guilt and shame when we procrastinate. They found that, we oftentimes when we do knowingly have something on our plate that needs to be done, and we circumvent that and do something else, we feel guilt and shame over the long run. So, there's difference between chronic procrastination and situational procrastination. An example of chronic procrastination is someone who procrastinates in everything. And they found that people that do that oftentimes have just an overall difficulty completing tasks. Versus situational procrastination, where maybe I don't like mowing lawns, but I'm Johnny on the spot when it comes to making apple pies, right? Just because you procrastinate doesn't mean you're a procrastinator. And Ferrari and some others have found that about 20% of people are actually chronic procrastinators. So, So why all of this? There's a couple things that you can do to improve in this area. So if you do struggle with procrastination, first thing is you can break up a big task into smaller chunks. They found that giving, and you mentioned it, Deb, kind of make with this schedule, make a big task into smaller tasks. Self-imposing deadlines has actually improved productivity for those who struggle with procrastination. If you're easily distracted, the tip there would be to remove distractions. Put yourself, if you know you get a lot of text on your phone, go study with and leave your phone in the other room, or turn off the TV. Don't listen to music. Again, if it's an emotional thing, remove those distractions. If you have a loved one, a spouse, kid, etc., that chronically procrastinates, they said the most loving thing you can do is actually let them fail, let them run out of gas, let them leave the dishes piled up. We as people, if our spouse or significant other or whoever we know is going to help us and bail us out, we're more likely to procrastinate. So kind of let them fall on their face a little bit. But then what's interesting, the most effective thing they found was actually self-forgiveness. They did a study with college students, and those students who procrastinated for the first test, who were able to stop and forgive themselves for that, actually were less likely to procrastinate on the second test. And so I look back and they talk about this dichotomy of it's basically knowing what we need to do but not being able to do it. And I think of, in my faith, like Paul in Romans talks about, I know what I need to do and I don't do it, but I do what I hate to do. So just food for thought, I thought that the self-forgiveness piece was a really cool tip. So thank you, Toastmasters.
Yay.